Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a detailed how I blend out my eyeshadows. I feel like I kind of go through my blending pretty quickly with my tutorials. I don't really go in depth, but I do understand that there are some people who might not know the steps that I take to blend out my eyeshadows to perfection. So I am going to try to show you guys how I blend out my eyeshadow seamlessly, and I'm going to do one side neutral and one side with color because my steps are just a little bit different when it comes to neutrals versus a colorful eye look. And colorful eye looks are actually probably the most hardest thing to blend out. If you can blend out colorful eye looks, you most likely can blend out a neutral eye look. But for some people, a neutral eye look is what they're starting out with, so it's hard for them to do that as well. So I'm going to show you both. So for my neutral eye side, I'm going to be using the Kylie Cosmetics, the bronze palette, which looks like this. This palette is really easy to use when it comes to just your everyday neutral eye look. So I'm going to be grabbing this one today. And for my colorful eye look side, I'm going to be using the ABH x Norvina collection. This is their Pro Pigment Palette Volume 4. I'm going to do a nice pink eyeshadow look. So I'm going to be using this palette today. Also, to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to be doing basically the same look as far as the same kind of eyeshadow look, but just one neutral, one color. So for my color side, I'm actually going to be using the Anastasia Beverly Hills eye primer. For color, I like to use this eye primer personally because I have a little bit of melanin in me, and sometimes my concealer is just not bright enough. The brighter your concealer or base shade is just going to help elevate the color that you're using on your eye a little bit more. It's gonna help brighten it more so you can get the best pigment out of that shadow. So if I were to use a darker concealer on a colorful side, sometimes it'll be okay, but if you want to get the most pigment, you want something that's really, really bright. So I'm going to be using the Anastasia Beverly Hills eye primer for that side. And for the neutral side, since it is a neutral eye look, I can kind of get away with my concealer shade. So I'm going to be using my Benefit Boing Cakeless Concealer in the color number 6.5 on this side. Now, if you have a deeper complexion, you might want to go up in your base shade. It could still be something neutral, but you might want to just go up a little bit lighter. It really just depends on your skin tone. So I'm going to put those two bases on my eyes, and I'll be right back to start the eyeshadow looks. Okay, now I have both bases on my eyes. You can see the difference between the two. This one's much brighter. This one's a little bit more toned down, closer to my skin tone. Personally, I do like when my bases are completely wet. I don't want them to be dried down, so I don't set them or anything before I start. I just leave them wet, and usually in the meantime of me doing the other eye, one will crease. So I'll take my It Cosmetics airbrush concealer brush and I'll just kind of tap on top of it to get rid of the crease, because I don't want to start off with it creasing already, and the shadow will just apply better without it being creased. So I just like it to be creaseless. I'm going to start off with the neutral side with the Kylie Cosmetics palette, and I'm going to start off with this color called Unmatched. If you're going to start off with a neutral, it's pretty easy to go with something that's fairly light. So either this one or this one or this one would be a great start, but I personally don't really care for these undertones, so I'm going to start with this one. I'll take my Morphe Cosmetics M514 brush. I love to use this brush for blending, and I will add that color Unmatched on the center of my lid. So you can see this is a nice light tone. It's not something too dark that we're starting off with. It's something that you can definitely blend out on its own without it being overwhelming. But if it is a little overwhelming for you, especially maybe if you're lighter skin tone, more fair, then you could start off with something even lighter. I like to tap it into the crease first, build that pigment in my crease without really blending anything out just yet. And then once I have the color kind of placed, I will then go in circular motions and start blending it out, and I will blend out the edges in just a nice circular motion. I also like to start like in my crease when I grab more color. So when I go back into the palette, grab some more color, bring it back to my eye. I like to start in the crease first. If you kind of start farther out where you need a little bit more color, it will just kind of like blend things out too far, make the color too pigmented too far out. You kind of want it to be a soft blend of it getting lighter and lighter. So I kind of start down in the crease first, and then I'll like work my way out softly. And I'll also like loosen up my brush pressure so that it's not like too hard on my eye. Next, I'm going to use a lighter color to help me blend out the shadow a little bit more. It's not looking too bad, but it could be better. So I'm going to use a lighter shade that's going to help me blend this out more. And what I like to use is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder in number 2. This is what I personally like to use. I use this color as my under eye powder as well on top of my concealer. And I didn't really choose anything in this palette to do this with because this one is just, it's not as bright, so I feel like it's just gonna make it darker. This one's a little too bright, like brighter than I want it to be, so I personally just like to use this kind of color on my brow bone. So to do that, I like to go in with more of a fluffier brush. This is the Morphe M441 brush, and I like to take it on my brow bone to kind of set my brow bone in place, but also to blend it into that shadow unmatched to lighten it up and blend it through on the edges. And then I'll go back with that first color that I used unmatched, just to kind of make sure that the powder didn't lighten it too much, and just blend it through a little bit more. And that's pretty much the kind of first steps of the neutral eye. So before I move on with the neutral eye, I'm gonna get started on the colorful side. So again, I'm gonna grab some more of that Anastasia eye primer base, and I'm just going to put a little bit more on here, but also make sure that it's not creasing. Again, the shadow is going to be wet, it's not set with anything. Going in with the Norvina Volume 4 palette, I'm going to take this color here called B2. With colorful shades, I like to go in with something a little bit darker than I would with a neutral eye. Doing this helps blending much easier. I noticed that with colors, if you go from light to dark, sometimes it can be very chalky and it won't blend the same as you would light to dark with a neutral. It just will make things sometimes difficult, not all the time, but sometimes it can be difficult, especially because colorful shadows usually are a drier texture. With something like that, you kind of have to work with how the shadow is instead of doing what you normally would do. So I'm going to take that color B2. Again, I'm going to use a Morphe M514 brush on this eye as well. As you can tell, I love using Morphe brushes to blend my shadows. Same thing with the neutral side, tap it into my crease, build that pigment, and just create this like overall shape is what I like to do. And now what I'll do is I'll just kind of slightly blend it out. I'm not expecting to blend this out all the way because it is a deeper color. I just would need a few lighter shades to help me blend this out. But I'm just gonna start ahead and blend it out a little bit. And sometimes if it's a little bit stubborn, I'll grab some more shadow to help blend out the edges a little bit more. So pretty much like that. Obviously it needs some more blending, but this is pretty much what I like to do. So now I will grab those lighter pink colors to help me blend this out a little bit more. So I'm gonna go in with this color called C2. I'm gonna take C2 on a Morphe M513 brush, and what I like to do is just start along the edge of the color, which helps blend the colors together but also gives me a starting point so that when I am ready I can start blending this lighter tone out by itself a little further. So now I'm going to take even a lighter shade of pink, which is this color called E1. And I'm going to use that color E1 with the same brush to help me blend out C2. I'm just going to go along the edges of it with E1. And this is going to help me blend out that even more. Like that, and you can see it looks much better. And now I'm going to take just a random white eyeshadow because this palette does not have a white eyeshadow. So I'm going to take this white eyeshadow by MAC Cosmetics called Gesso, and using the same exact brush, I'm going to blur out the edges of this pink even more. Like that. Very, very pretty. You can see that it does take a little bit more work with the color side versus the neutral side. And now I'm going to go back with that first color called B2, and I'm going to bring it back in here because you can see that there isn't much blending going on right here on this edge. It's because we took all those light colors and kind of put it on top of it, and it kind of gotten a little lightened by that. And so now I'm going to go back with that first color, bring it back to life and blend it up a little bit further, blend it up into those lighter tones so that it doesn't have like that weird abrupt stop. So now I'm going to pause on the color side and I'm going to go back to the neutral side. So next, with the Kylie Cosmetics palette, I'm going to take this color called Mocha Latte. And so now we're going to deepen this neutral eye a little bit more. So now you can see we're going from light to dark, so we're going darker now. And using the same brush, I'm going to add this color Mocha Latte right in my crease. Just gonna continue to do circular motions and like windshield wiping motions, which is basically like back and forth like this. And then circular motions are kind of like this, where it's just like literally moving in small little circles. Like so. Very, very pretty. It's blending out really nicely. One thing that you don't want to do though is when you're blending a darker color onto your lid, once you have these lighter tones, you do not want to bring these darker tones all the way up there. All you're going to be doing is just, you know, covering up all the hard work that you put in blending this out right here. You don't want to make this part darker. So you just want to add this to the crease, add this darker color to the crease, blend it up enough until it is like basically blended out all the way. But you don't want to blend it too far to where you're covering your lighter tones, because then there would be no gradient effect of it getting dark to light. Yeah, I hope I'm explaining that right. But now I'm gonna take a break from this side and go back to the color side, and we're gonna deepen the color side. So now that we have like a deeper tone color here, it's much easier to blend out darker tones. But if we were to go light to dark, it would be harder. It's just hard to explain. If you've worked with color, you might know what I'm talking about. But I personally just feel like dark to light usually works best with color, especially when they're really dry and powdery. So next, I'm going to take this color called E4. Using the same Morphe M514 brush with the color E4, I'm going to grab this color, and since we are going a little bit darker, I might just focus this on this half of the eye. I'm not really going to bring it in too much. So I'm going to start in my crease as well, or sometimes what I like to do is start on my lash line here and work my way up if the color is just a little bit too intimidating. So I'll start on my lid right here, blend it in, tap it in, and then I'll kind of work the color in to my crease. I can see that it's deepening it just slightly, but not that much. So I think what I'm going to do is use an even darker color. That's pretty much the darkest color in this palette is E4. I'm going to grab the ABH Times Arvita Collection Pro Pigment Palette Volume 5. And because this one will have deeper tones that I will need, which is like this one, for example, E5. Let's do E5. So I'm going to take E5 using the same brush. Again, I'm going to add this to my lash line first, and I'm going to work it upward into my crease. You can see this is deepening it a lot more than the other color, but you can see how smoothly everything is just coming together. It's not blotchy. And of course I'm gonna kind of keep the front a little bit more lighter, but I'm just going to swiftly like blend over there a little bit once I notice that there's not that much product left on my brush, just to kind of make sure that that transition is kind of blended and seamless as well. But yeah, just like that. And that's kind of like the stopping point that I want to do for this eyeshadow look for the colorful side, but very, very pretty. You can see it's blended out very well. And now we're gonna finish off all the mattes with the neutral side. So I'm gonna go back in with the Kylie palette, and I'm gonna take this color called Brunette. Taking that on the same brush, I'm going to start by my lash line again and just kind of work it up since it is a darker color. Just wanna be careful. And then I'm gonna softly bring this up into my crease, blending it in, deepening up the look. Again, I'm gonna deepen this half of the lid as well. So just doing the same things as the other side, doing circular motions, blending it through the crease a little bit, bringing a little bit over halfway, but not too much. Not covering the lighter tones with this darker tone, just kind of blending it out seamlessly. And if you ever feel like maybe there's an area where it got a little too dark, go back with a new clean brush. I'm going to use a Morphe M514 brush again, and go in where you feel like there could be a little bit of a lighter tone there. I'm going to go back in with the Mocha Latte color, so I feel like maybe that's the tone that I'm missing there. And I'm just going to put it right on top of that darker area where I feel like this color is kind of missing in the transition, and just sweep it over the edge of it and blend it through. And that tends to usually work for me. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do a soft cut crease. So with this side, I'm gonna use concealer, and with this side, I'm gonna use Anastasia, of course. So I'm gonna go in with my concealer first. To apply my concealer, I'm gonna be using the IT Cosmetics Airbrush Shadow Brush, and I'm just going to apply it to the lid really quickly. I'm just doing some tapping motions, tapping it. I'm gonna start near my lash line first and work my way up because I don't want there to be too much product at the top. I just want to kind of ease my way up and blend it out thinly and softly. Once I'm at a good point like this, about this high up, I will start going in circular motions and blending it out. I don't want it to be defined, so I'm just going to blend it out in circular motions and then tapping out the edges here. And sometimes what I like to do is go back with my blending brush with no extra product, and I will just kind of blend the concealer with the matte shadows together so that it doesn't look like an abrupt stopping point. And for the colorful side, I'll basically do the same thing but with the Anastasia Beverly Hills eye primer. And to apply it, I'm going to be taking the Real Techniques domed shadow brush and just again adding it closer to my lash line first, and then I'm going to slowly work my way up, doing tapping motions. And again, once I get to a good point, I will start doing circular motions along the edge and just blend that up softly and tap the edges. Then again, going in with my blending brush with no extra product, I will just blend the eye primer and the shadows together. Now I'm going to add a shimmer onto the lids. So I'm going to take this color from the Kylie Cosmetics palette called She's Golden. I'm going to apply She's Golden with a Sigma E28 detail buffer brush. I love to use this brush to apply any mattes or shimmers onto the lid for this specific part of my eye. And so I will just kind of tap this on. And again, I leave the concealer and the primer wet. I do not dry it at all. One thing I will say is if you have oily lids, you might have to maneuver a little bit differently with that, because I mean, it really could just depend on the base that you're using. But I've noticed that with some people, leaving it wet while their lids are oily and they're using a shimmer could kind of like crease up and stuff. So I would just double check with that. But my lids are not oily, so I can get away with it. And then once I have kind of my shimmer like in place like this, I will go along the edges and blend it out using circular motions. And I will take my blending brush again with no extra product and blend it through with the shimmer. And then I will take product. I know this kind of seems weird, like why won't you just take product in the beginning? But it's because I like to make sure that it's blended properly first before I add product, because adding product is just going to cover it. It's not going to help blend it, at least in my experience. I'm just speaking on my experience of everything. People do things differently. But now I'm going to take that darker color brunette again, and just on the bottom here near my lash line, I'm just going to kind of blend it through. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So from the ABH Norvina palette, I'm going to take this color called A2. And before I apply that color, I'm going to go back in with my Real Techniques brush because I can see that it's kind of creasing a little bit. So whenever it creases, I always go back and tap on it to make sure that it's not creasing before I put something on there. And then I'm going to take that color A2 on a Morphe V202 brush, and I like to use this brush as well for any mattes or shimmers on the front of my eye here. So I'm just gonna again tap this into my eye. Usually color shimmers are not like a problem at all, so I never have a problem with the color shimmers. It's usually just the mattes that give you a hard time. And then I'm just going to continue to tap, tap, tap. And then I'm going to take the edge of that and just blend it up. And then again, going in with my blending brush with no extra product, blending that with the mattes. And then I'll go back with that darkest color from the Volume 5 palette, which I think was called E5. Yeah, E5. And I will go into the bottom corner, blending it through. Next, what I will do for both eyes, I will use Anastasia Beverly Hills liquid liner in black. I love this liner because it dries down matte. It's also waterproof, I believe, but I love that it dries down matte. I don't really care for shiny black liquid liners, but this one is really, really good because it dries down matte instead of shiny. But I'm just gonna do a regular line, nothing special. And now I will take the darker colors for both sides and blend it in with a black liner. So for example, for the neutral side, I'll take that color brunette from the Kylie palette, blend it into the black just so that the liner doesn't look like it's abruptly stopped. And then I'll go in with that color called E5 from the Norvina and ABH Volume 5 palette and blend it on the black color as well. Very pretty. As you can see, similar look, different outcome because one's neutral, one's color. But yeah, you can see you can get pretty much the same kind of blend going. This one obviously might take just a little bit more work. So I'm gonna do my face off camera and then I'll come back to show you guys the bottom eyeshadow. Okay guys, I'm back. I finished my face off camera. I also added a little bit of gems on my eyes. I used the brand Get Stoned. I'm gonna start with the neutral side and I'm gonna be using, again, the Kylie Cosmetics the bronze palette. And to apply the bottom eyeshadow, I'm going to be using the Sigma Beauty E55 eye shading brush. Of course, first I'm going to go in with this color called Unmatched, and I'm just going to apply this underneath my eye here all the way through. And there's really nothing to it as far as blending this portion out. I just like to kind of like apply it and smudge it underneath so that it looks blended on the edges. And then I go in with the next darker color, which is going to be Mocha Latte, and pretty much doing the same thing, applying that all throughout the bottom of my eye. Last but not least, I'm going to take this color called Brunette. Using the same brush, I'm just going to apply this about halfway instead of all the way through. And I'll finish off the look with an inner corner eye color. So I'm going to be using the Morphe M506 brush, and I'm going to use this brush to apply the color Vanilla. And I'm just going to place this in the inner corner of my eye, and then I will do circular motions to kind of like blend it out. Last but not least, I like to add a waterline highlight. So I will be using a Norvina Chroma Stick in the color Apricot, and I will put this in my waterline to kind of brighten it. Now I'm going to finish off the colorful side. Going back in with the ABH Nirvana Collection Pro Pigment Palette Volume 4, I'm going to take the first color I went in with, which was B2. I'm going to apply B2 with a Morphe M507 brush, and I'm just going to put this all throughout the bottom of my eye. And next I'm going to go in with this color C2 and a little bit of this color E1 to help blend out this little bit more. So starting with C2, I'm just going to go right along the bottom, blending this in using the same brush. And then I'm going to take color E1 and do the exact same thing. Next, I'm going to go back in with this ABH Times Nirvana Collection Pro Pigment Palette Volume 5. And I'm going to take that dark color E5. Using the same brush, I'm going to take this color and put it about halfway underneath here. And I'm actually also going to take this color called A1 from the same palette. Using the Morphe M506 brush, I'm going to apply this color in the inner corner. I'm just going to apply it first, stamping it on my eye, and then I'm just going to do circular motions to blend it out. And now I'm going to highlight my waterline with the Nirvana Chroma Stick in the color Pastel Pink. And that's pretty much it. For lashes, I used Beauty Creations in the style Bad Habits. Very, very pretty. I love this look. Or, well, I mean, it's not really a look, but I just love how both eyes came out. I'm sure you guys can tell that with the neutral side, there's not really much to it. All you really have to do is start light to dark. Usually, for the most part, that's how it's worked out for me, is starting a little bit on the medium to light side and then working your way darker helps a lot. And then you can always use a lighter tone to help blend out your medium tones, but for the most part, it's pretty simple, not too complicated, but as you can tell with the colorful side, it's a little bit more work you have to put into it. It's best, for my personal experience, to start off with a medium to dark tone and then work your way lighter, and then you can work with your darker tones to build. But starting off light to dark, usually for me, just does not work out like it does with neutral eyeshadows. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope this was very informative and helpful, and I hope that, you know, with more practice you guys can get better at your blending. But yeah, let me know what else you guys would like to see from me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.